thank you for writing a book for dads like me, because I strive to do the bare minimum, and this book spoke to me in a way that you cannot imagine.
You were my target audience.
So how do you come up with a concept of, I'm going to take the time to write a book to tell parents to just chill out?
It was a really easy concept to come up with because the opposite is so much in your face now. There are a million parenting books out there about how to be the perfect parent and raise the perfect child. And I just look at, where are these perfect kids? Where are they at? These parents are killing themselves, working so hard, and their kids are growing up to be just like everybody else. So I thought, what if I do the opposite? What if I write a book that rather than working as hard as you can to give your kid an advantage, what if you put in the bare minimum to still turn out that mediocre adult, to be average just like the rest of us? And it started out as a joke. It was just going to be 50,000 words of jokes, but by the end I kind of accidentally proved a point. I think actually if you're this laid back, easygoing parent, I think your kid isn't going to be at a disadvantage. I think your kid is actually going to be better off than if you're an overachieving parent, and that's really not what I expected to find out. So I was pleasantly surprised that my book was not a waste of time.
Anyone who tells you that you're parenting wrong is wrong simply for assuming there's a right way at all to parent.
There are all these parenting books out there. We should be getting better. Every generation, we should have better kids, we should have better parents, and I look around, I don't see progress.
What message do you have for these people who try to be perfect parents?
If that's what makes you happy, if this is how you want to raise your kids, then by all means do that, because there is no right way to do it. But if you're only going the extra mile, if you're only enrolling your kid in 1,000 groups, if you're only getting them all this extra tutoring because you feel like that's what you have to do, that the society tells you have to be an overachiever, that other parents tell you you have to be an overachiever, this book says no, you don't. You can raise your kids how you want to, and if being an overachiever, if being a perfect parent is making you miserable, then stop. Just have fun, and you'll be better for it, and your kid will be better for it.
You have become a celebrity.
I don't know about that.
Did you know that your tweets were going to get you to be this well known?
No, not at all. I mean, I have much experience with failure. That's kind of my comfort zone, and it was a very gradual process. I started out trying to, write more traditionally, and it wasn't working. Then I moved to blogging, and that wasn't working. Then I finally moved to Twitter, and that's where I started to get a little bit of growth. I thought, hey, I made a slight amount of progress here. I'm going to go all in, and I wasted entirely too much time on that medium. Just ask my wife. It was a lot of years of no progress and no money, and I kind of built up a following, and then in 2016 everything kind of exploded, and then I got the book deal, and I got another book deal, and all those things. So I mean, I was trying for it, but by no means did I really expect it to ever happen.
What did your wife say to you about all this national attention you were getting about tweeting about your kids?
You have to understand something about my wife and kids. They are completely unimpressed by anything I do. There will be no point where I do something and they go, wow, that's amazing. That's a great relief too, because it's not like my wife married me. She thought I was going to be this great comedy writer. She just married me for me. Her expectations were very low, so that's good. So when I finally say or do something that ruins this whole comedy career, she'll still be there, so it's nice and reassuring. I started tweeting in 2012, and over the next 4 years, I built up to about 200,000 followers by wasting entirely too much time in it. I mean, I treated it like a job long before it was a job, and I figured out that what people liked me tweeting about was about my kids. They didn't care about me. They liked me, writing jokes about my family that they could relate to. In 2016, in April, BuzzFeed ran an article on me, and I didn't think anything of it. And that article showed up on a Saturday morning, and I checked my Twitter feed, and I'd gained 3,000 followers. I thought, well, that's kind of weird. By noon, I'd gained 10,000. By that night, I'd gained 40,000. By the end of the weekend, I'd gained 100,000, and I was getting emails from newspapers around the world. By the end of the month, I had an agent and a book deal. I mean, it was just a crazy series of events, and anybody who looking at it from the outside says, wow, that really happened fast. But you got to remember, that was the end of 10 years of comedy writing. That's like looking at the final sprint in a marathon and being like, boy, that was a short race. I mean, you're really looking at a very compressed time frame. But yeah, it was a great finish. After I went viral, everybody just wanted me to publish a book of tweets, and I didn't want to do that. So my first book was Only Dead on the Inside: A Parent's Guide to Surviving the Zombie Apocalypse. And that was a really fun book to write. It was like, let's take a traditional parenting guide and just throw zombies in. What's it like to take your kids to the grocery store when zombies attack? What's it like to clean your house when zombies attack? Things like that. It got me a chance to rant about how great minivans are for surviving the apocalypse. And it was a book that nobody really knew what to do with, but it sold pretty well. It got me to my next book, so I was pretty happy with it. The cover sums it up all right here with this PhD that's crossed out. So I have no expertise in any of this whatsoever. No research was done, but I think that's really the key to the whole book. You don't need to do research to be a good parent. I've never been in a situation where I thought, boy, this would be so much easier if I had a PhD in child psychology or early childhood development. And quite frankly, the kids I've seen who come from like overeducated professor types, they're always weird. Like, I don't know that they're doing any better than the rest of us. So I think my lack of child-specific education is definitely an asset.
Why do you think your tweets resonated with so many people.
We all have these experiences, and nobody wants to voice them because everybody wants to be the perfect parent. You know, there's so much shaming and so much pressure out there to go and put on a good face. It's kind of the Facebook effect of you only portray the best, and it's kind of an echo chamber of lies. If I only put out what's best about my kids and you only put out what's best about your kids, we all think everybody else has the perfect family and that we're the only ones lying. In reality, we're all lying. So I just go out there and I put all my failures on the surface. You know, here's everything that went wrong today. Here's all the crazy things my kids said and did. And here's the thing, I have never had a tweet that's too crazy that somebody else hasn't had it happen to them. I mean, you can't out crazy kids. There's always somebody else who's had that strange experience. You know, you find footprints on the walls or ceiling or wherever. Somebody's, oh yeah, my kid did that today. I mean, we are all in this together. The weirdness of children is oddly universal, and that's been the reassuring thing from this. There really are no perfect parents out there, and there are a whole lot of people who are ready to celebrate their imperfections.
How many Twitter followers do you have now?
Just over 1 million on Twitter, and then, you know, between Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest, oddly enough, I think it's about 1.5 million followers total across everything. I'm biggest on Twitter, and Twitter means absolutely nothing to kids at all. But YouTube is everything to them, I've discovered. But one day, there was some YouTube celebrity who was reading off my tweets, and my kids came running into the room. They're like, Dad, you're on the internet. It's like, I live on the internet. This is where I make a living. But it doesn't count to them unless it's on YouTube. So we've started doing YouTube videos, and they get on there, and it usually turns into 5 minutes of them just hitting me in the head with something. It's like the camera's rolling. I can't stop this.
And how do you think kids are here?
If we were filming this at my house, there would be 6 kids opening the door trying to figure out what's going on in there. Every chapter in this book was pretty much inspired by somebody I saw doing something crazy. I have a friend whose daughter is in junior high, and she's going to 2 hours of soccer practice a night. Every night, and it's practically year-round for soccer. And at some point, she got hurt. And she had to go there for 2 hours a night to watch everybody else play soccer. I thought, this is insane. If you get hurt on the battlefield, they don't send you to the front lines, they clap for the other troops. They send you home. But yet we've established this thing that somehow it's this good lesson that when you get hurt, you still travel on the team bus and waste all of your free time. Everything you do belongs to the coach. That's a terrible lesson to teach.
How much do you think your living in Indiana contributes to the style of your tweets?
I didn't think it contributed that much until I started doing these interviews with people who are not in Indiana, especially like out in LA. One of the early interviews I did, somebody was like, this book is so controversial and revolutionary. I was like, this is common sense parenting. I kind of thought this is how we all did it, but it's really not. Like, if you said some of these things out loud in LA, like, you would be, you know, driven out of town by an angry mob with, you know, pitchforks and torches. Like, you can't say these kind of things in these high pressure environments. I think here in Indiana in general, while there are a lot of overachieving parents, I think the mean overall is that we're more laid back, and that is definitely more my vibe. We all have these stories too. You look at somebody, you're like, boy, they had a great, you know, childhood. Their parents were awesome. What happened to them? And then we also have stories of like, boy, their life was awful. And look at them now. Look at what they overcame. Look at their tragic backstory, and look at where they are now. But then somehow when we become parents, we lose perspective. We think this is all up to us. Like, everything my child says and does, everything they achieve in life, it's all up to me. And it's kind of the ultimate act of narcissism, because you or I wouldn't say, well, I'm everything I am because of my parents and I had nothing to do with it. And if you look back now, maybe not you so much because you're this big success, but when you're somebody average like me, you look back, it's like, would my life really be any different if my parents got me into the top preschool rather than a regular preschool? Right now, there's somebody on a parenting forum being shamed to tears because they think their stroller choice is some life or death decision. And you get to the time you're 30, 40, you're like, this doesn't matter. Why do I care about this? So that's what this book is just a reminder. Gain some perspective. You kind of turn out how you turn out, so everybody just chill out. You're never going to find a case where a judge says, boy, you know, this isn't your fault at all because you went to a terrible preschool. Like, nobody traces things back that far. There are 1,000 factors that intervene in there. Really early on, your kids don't remember anything anyway. That's a big encouragement in this book, is if your kids only remember what you tell them, just tell them the good parts. You know, lie strategically to your advantage.
When I read this book, I felt better about myself as a parent.
I think it's really hard to mess up with a kid. I mean, within the normal bounds of regular parenting, as long as you're doing what you need to and they have food, clothing, and shelter, as long as you love your kid, they're going to turn out great. And the crazy part is, you know, when they're younger, they think you're a hero anyway. You know, these parents are here beating themselves up thinking, oh, I'm such a terrible dad or a terrible mom. And your kid's looking at you like you're the greatest superhero in the world. I mean, it's not like they're going to go out and, like, you know, do a poll and see how 100 other parents do it. I mean, they have a very limited view of the world. So take advantage of it. Give yourself a break.
Do you even know how many tweets you have out there?
I think it's 16 or 17,000, somewhere like that.
The great thing about Twitter is you know immediately if a tweet works or doesn't.
Yes, that was actually the only reason I finally succeeded. So I used to blog, and you write 1,000 or 2,000 words and you put it out there, and you get 2 comments back. One person says, "Haha, that's hilarious," and the other person says, "This is stupid, delete your blog." But with Twitter, it gave me focus and it gave me feedback. So you write that tweet and people ignore it, and it's like, okay, was that a bad joke? Is this something people don't care about? And then you hit the mark and people retweet it and it spreads. So it lets you succeed on a large scale and fail on a small scale, and that's really kind of the perfect environment for joke writing. So that's how I figured out how to do it. And I'd like to say I've always been funny and good at doing this, but I look back at my early tweets one day and they were terrible. Like when I had no followers, I deserved no followers. Like there's a reason I was ignored.
What are some of your favorite tweets?
It was from real early on. It was my first kind of quasi-viral tweet. In case you were on the fence about having kids, today my 2-year-old threw a temper tantrum because she couldn't get rid of her shadow. It was completely true. We were in a restaurant. It had weird lighting that made her shadow go in 4 different directions, and she was freaking out and we couldn't figure out why. And then we finally figured out it was because she couldn't get this shadow off of her. And that was kind of a defining moment of parenting. It's like, oh, there is no solution to this problem. It goes across cultures too. I mean, I don't just have followers in the U.S. I mean, there was a big article about me in a paper called The Hindu in India the other day, and it doesn't really matter what environment you're growing up in. Kids are equally strange everywhere, and parents are just doing their best to get by. I actually wish this book was controversial because I'd probably sell a lot more. If people want to buy this book and burn it in bonfires or whatever, you have my full permission. Go for it. To me, I think if you buy this book in Indiana, I don't think you're going to find it controversial at all. If you buy it in LA and you show it in public, I think you're going to be in trouble. They might arrest you. On Facebook, I think, is there any other internet forum is where it comes out the most. You say, "This is what I'm doing with my kid. Isn't that great?" And then somebody else says, "Well, I'm doing this with my kid." And then all of a sudden, friendship over, never speaking to each other again. And I think what it comes down to is we put so much pressure on ourselves to make the perfect choice for our kids. So I go and I do all this research and I pick the perfect diaper for my child, and you go and do all this research and pick a different diaper for your child. Well, we can't both make the best choice, so one of us is going to kill our kids. I mean, that's the extreme they jump to. One of these is going to make your kid the president of the United States, and the other one is going to kill your kid by the time they're 5, and there's no in between. And so we have these fights that we act like they're life and death, and really, I don't think they matter at all. I don't think it matters what diaper brand you pick. As long as it holds the poop in, you're good. I listened to another comedian talk, and she didn't let her kids watch any TV ever. And I remember the one time I banned screens in my house for like an hour, and my house was nearly destroyed. I think the thing that surprises people the most is how often these tweets are true. That how often this is exactly what happens. A couple weeks ago, we dumped my kids on grandma, so we go to a wedding. At one point, her updates stopped being, kids are doing this, kids are doing that, to it was just a list of things they were breaking. It's like, okay, grandma is ready for us to collect our children. So this is a book about very much making time for yourself and making time for your kids, but in a smart way that doesn't exhaust you and doesn't exhaust them. It's about not wasting time and energy on things that don't matter. Why put 110% into something that your kids are going to forget by tomorrow and that won't make any difference in their lives long term? It's about making time for the things that matter to you and making time for yourself as well. It never occurred to me that there are people out there who honestly believe that once you're a parent, 100% of your time goes to your kids. Like there's no more free time. Everything you're doing needs to be enriching them somehow and building them up somehow. And I think that's crazy. I mean, I love my kids. I make time for my kids, but my kids are not the center of my universe. They are members of my family. And I think the best thing I can do for them is show them that they are members of my family and not the entire focus of my entire life. Because spoiler alert, your kids don't like it when you spend 100% of your time on them either.